Oh, man. They messed up and gave your boy a podcast. Who do we blame for this? Who do we need to get in contact with? Because this never should have happened. Mama, we got our own podcast. We're going to have fun with this. If this is your first time stumbling across myself in any way, shape, or form, congratulations. Because you may have just found the most authentic, yet non-professional podcast on all platforms of podcasting. I believe this could be one of the most fun, informative, and in some ways impactful podcasts out there. I truly believe that. There will be no profanity, very family friendly here. So unless I say something horrible, and I mean outright horrible, that I'm worried is going to put me on cancel culture's radar or an FBI's manhunt watch list, I'm not editing these. It's going to be an authentic, one-take podcast, and we're going to have some fun. Now, this podcast is going to mainly cover sports, football and basketball. We're going to throw in some fantasy there, collegiate and professional levels there, and we're going to have some fun. I'll put it this way. I compare in my head a podcast to a gas station. You know, a gas station where you go in, you get what you need and go. The beauty of it is you're there for 5 minutes and you're getting what you need, right? Whether it's gas or your favorite snack and a drink, whatever the case may be, you're getting what you need and you're on your way. A podcast to me is similar in the fact that you're getting what you need and you're going. I have watched podcasts for years on end, and I believe that you don't need to sit there and watch a 3-hour podcast to get the point. You don't need to watch a 2-hour podcast to get the point. Which I have a long history of doing. So with that said, my podcasts are going to range from around 30 to 45 minutes, give or take a couple minutes, here and there. And the plan is to every Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesdays, we're going to come to you at around 4 o'clock. And Thursdays around noon, so be on the lookout for that. I'll remind you guys at the end of the show. But as of now, I am riding solo dolo. I am your one and only host. Maybe as we grow and evolve as a podcast and evolve as a community, we're looking at bringing in guests. I have plenty of people that I would love to bring in and we can talk to that I feel you guys would enjoy. But for now, it's just me. Without further ado, welcome to the Anomaly Podcast. I'm your host, Owen Stiftar. Let's get into it. All right, the Thursday night preview is going to be our first topic we're going to get into. That's usually going to be the Tuesday shows. We're going to dive into the Thursday night games and go from there. So this Thursday, we're going to have the Washington Commanders at 1-4. They're heading into Soldier Field, and they'll be taking on at the 2-3 Chicago Bears. Right now, the spread, Bears are given 1.5, over and under being an ugly 38.5. But let's start with Washington. They're coming off of a loss. They're coming off of a loss to Tennessee, making it 4 straight losses for them. Week 1 they looked decent. The Washington Commanders looked like a fringe playoff team, but it fell apart quickly. On top of all of that, there was a viral video I'm sure you guys have seen or heard going around of Ron Rivera, obviously the coach of the Washington Commanders. He was basically bashing Carson Wentz. To put it briefly, a reporter asked him after the game against Tennessee why he believed the Commanders were behind. With the Cowboys with Cooper Rush, the Giants with Daniel Jones being 4-1 teams despite, injuries or lack of talent. And Ron Rivera had a one-word answer. He said, quarterback. Very, very simply, obviously at the end of the Tennessee game, the Washington Commanders, I believe there was 9 seconds left and Wentz threw a pick in the red zone. So they had a shot to win the game. They were only down 4. And, I'll admit, Wentz threw a pretty bad ball. But it's never a good sign when your head coach basically wants you to come to your team. Rivera wanted them to go out and get Wentz. He didn't believe in Heineke. He didn't believe in Howell. He wanted Wentz. and now he's bashing him. But yes, Rivera would go on to say it's a QB-driven league, which is obvious. But not only did he choose to bring in Carson Wentz, he proceeded to give him no help up front. Look, I've been a Carson Wentz stan since he was drafted, since 2016 or 20. I believe 2016 was the year he was drafted. I wanted the Browns to draft him. If you guys didn't know, I am a Browns fan. We're struggling. We'll get into that later. But I wanted us to draft Carson Wentz. He has all the intangibles that you would want in a franchise quarterback. The IQ just lacks a little bit. But I will say it is hard to throw the ball when you are constantly worried or when you constantly have a 300-pound D lineman or D end in your face right after you snap the ball. So Rivera, he brought in Wentz, and I don't know if he's given him a fair shot. But, I mean, hey, speaking about Wentz and as a Wentz fan, this might be his last shot as a starting quarterback in the NFL, in all honesty, which is hard to say, but at the same time, who knows? Mitch Trubisky's getting another shot. Cam Newton got another shot after years of absence and as a backup. So we never know. But it's never a good sign when the head coach is bashing a team's quarterback. And, they're just a below-average team. That's just the way to describe them in short. 3 words for them is below-average team. 19th best offense, 18th best defense, excuse me. And really what's puzzling here is the 18th ranked defense. On paper, I'll put it this way. You look at that D lineman, the D line of the Washington Commanders. You have Chase Young, talented young player. Obviously, he had injuries last year, but he was drafted the number 2 pick or the number 2 pick. So they have Chase Young, Deron Payne, who's another first rounder out of Bama. You have Montez Sweat, excuse me, and there's another guy I can't think of right now, Jonathan Allen, the best one. I forget him. But yes, those 4 guys, they might be the most talented D-line, I think, without question in the NFL. There's a point in time where, yes, it is on the D-line for not getting to the quarterback. They're talented, but they're not giving production. At the same time, I believe this has to rely on the coaching of the Washington Commanders. There's no way you have that talented of a D-line and you cannot pressure the quarterback. But yes, I believe, for the Commanders, they have a real coaching issue right now. I wouldn't doubt Wentz having a couple weeks left, especially if they continue to lose and then he's on the back burner. I wouldn't be surprised if Rivera got fired midway through the season, just like Matt Rule. But we'll have to see, man. On a high note for the Commanders, last week, it was really the moment of the week for me. Brian Robinson, he made his debut. Rookie out of Bama, obviously killed my Gators. But Brian Robinson made his debut last week after being shot 9 times in the leg and I believe the butt. In all seriousness, it was great to see him out there. It was great to see him out there. That he actually came out of the tunnel to Many Men, a song by 50 Cent, where he was 50, obviously, went through some of the same trials and tribulations. He was shot, came back to life, and, he made a great career out of it. So Brian Robinson, I'm not saying he's going to be the next superstar. It was just great to see, on a personal note, to see him out there playing. He didn't have the greatest game, but, he's got to get his legs back under him. So it was great to see him. Obviously, their receivers, they have one of the most talented receiving groups in the league. Just on a talent perspective, McLaurin might be top 10, top 15 in the league. Jahan Dotson has looked great this year, rookie out of Penn State. And obviously, Curtis Samuel is there. He's a great, he's a great third option in an offense. So briefly, to put it briefly, I'll put it this way. For the Commanders, the only thing that's going right for you right now is are the receivers and your run defense. So you Commanders, run defense, receivers, those are your highs right now. And Brian Robinson coming back, making his debut in the league. Happy to see him out there and being able to play yet again. But the last point I'll make about the Commanders before we jump into the Bears is they give up only 110 rushing yards a week, which is top 10 in the league. The positive to that, you may ask, is the Bears obviously love to run. But yes, let's transition to the Bears as we're talking about them. They are coming off of a loss last week in Minnesota. Obviously, Jefferson had an amazing game, 13 for over 130 or something crazy like that. I know Dalvin also had 2 touchdowns. So Minnesota has looked great. We'll get into them later. But for Chicago, yes, they've lost 2 straight, right? And they do have the 31st offense, 22nd defense, which is terrible. Maybe they are realizing they don't have enough talent to compete. But at the same time, on the high note, they've lost to 2 4-1 teams. So throughout their 3 losses this year, the Giants, who, people have their different thoughts on if they're a true 4-1 team, but also Minnesota. So they've lost to 2 capable teams, and I mean it's just unfortunate that they're actually winning games despite having a lackluster passing offense, which obviously is a passing league as of now. But good thing is Monty came back last week. He looked great. Their offense is looking better. Like I was saying, it's opening up more. I'm happy to see Justin Fields they're giving him more freedom to actually throw the ball downfield. He actually eclipsed 200 passing yards last week for the first time this season. By the way, if you didn't see it, go take a look. Darnell Mooney, he had a catch of the year candidate play. It was beautiful to watch. It was deep down the left sideline, turned around, one-handed catch, and all that good stuff. It was always, you always like to see the plays like that. Always SportsCenter top 10 plays. It's always good. But in my opinion, I hate to admit this yet again as a Browns fan, George Pickens has the catch of the year, and Deontay's is probably right behind him. So despite the Steelers' mishaps, they have 2 of the best catches of the year. But yes, for the Bears, they're coming off of a loss, but they've lost to 2 4-1 teams. So I believe the next couple of weeks we're going to see who the Bears really are. They're going up against a team that is in shambles right now. For Washington too. This week I believe for both teams is a very make or break week. Even though the Bears would go to 2-4, it's very, you can come back from that. But I know for sure it's a make or break week for Washington. If Washington loses this week, we got to start. We're going to start seeing some Photoshop pictures of of Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud in a Washington uniform. But regardless of that, I'm going to say Chicago covers the spread of 1.5, and I'm going to say that it's actually going to be under 38.5 points. It's going to be a snooze fest. If there is a Thursday night game that you were to miss, it'd be this one. Pick up an extra shift. But if you're in the old school smash mouth, running the ball style of games, which is fun here and there, but that's what you're going to get here. I believe the score, Bears will probably run away with it. I'm going to take the Bears in this one. They're at home. Washington, like I said, they're in shambles. I do expect this game won't be close. I'll put it that way. It won't be close in the sense that either Washington's going to come out and play like they should and blow out the Bears, or the Bears are just going to control the clock, win this game, by 2 or 3 scores. And, but, I don't know. I can't see this game coming down to the wire, as crazy as that may sound. I believe this is just a week that this game's going to be over in the first half, or maybe, after the third quarter. With everything. Give me the Bears this week. And that's going to do it for the Thursday night preview. Let's get into picks of the week. All right, as we transition into picks of the week, this is a segment just how it sounds. I'm going to go through all games of the week, each and every week, And even though it is week 5, or week 6, excuse me, I do have a head start on you guys. I do realize that if I did start this at the beginning of the year, my record would probably not look as good. I kind of already have an idea on how good every team is, or how what the outlook of them may look like going forward. But regardless, we're going to start here in week 6. We're just going to go from here. We'll see where we end up at the end of the year, including playoffs. And let's get into it. The bye weeks this week, I may add, Tennessee, Houston, Detroit, and Las Vegas. Those 4 teams are on bye this week. So good for them. Speaking from a personal side, I would hate for my team to have an early bye week like that. But hey, for a team like Detroit, for example, it could be good for them as they're looking to turn things around. Like I said, for Thursday night football, Washington at Chicago. Give me Chicago. But then we transition into the 1 o'clock games. The first one we're going to kick off with is Baltimore at the Giants. Baltimore 3-2, sitting first in the AFC North. The Giants 4-1, sitting actually third, technically, in the NFC East. I hate to say this. Maybe it's just me being an ignorant football fan, but I do not see the hype behind the Giants. I cannot get past the fact that Daniel Jones is their quarterback, and I will, for that simple fact, give me Lamar Jackson and the Ravens on the road in New York. I believe the Ravens can come out with this one. Obviously, they had a great game last week. They beat the Giants. They beat the Bengals. They will then beat the Giants this week. And Lamar Jackson, they're going to improve the 4-2. They're going to extend their lead on the AFC North, or at least maintain it. And Saquon's looked great. I mean, that offense, the offense of the Giants reminds me of that Jags team. If you're Jacksonville, that team, the 2017 team with Blake Bortles at the helm, when they just ran through Leonard Fournette. That is the offense of the Giants. The offense of the Giants is give Saquon the ball and get out of the way. Which, I mean, as a 4-1 record, it's not that bad of a strategy. But it doesn't work here. Give me Baltimore on the road. Lamar Jackson at the helm, taking down the Giants. We're going to move next to the Jacksonville Jaguars, sitting at 2-3, third in the AFC South. They're heading into Indy to play the 2-1, second-placed Indianapolis Colts. Matt Ryan has... I was watching that game last week, and we'll get into this later for the fantasy pickups of the week, but it was just funny to watch the offense without Jonathan Taylor. They were clueless. And this Indy team, I don't know. They found a way to squeak out 2 wins this year, and this team, they already played in week 2 of the season, I may add. Jacksonville, I believe, won 24-0 against Indy in week 2. So Jacksonville they're already 1-0 on the season series, and I believe I'm going to take another road team here. I'm going to take Jacksonville. They're going to bounce back after the loss last week. I believe they're going to go up, and they're going to win the season series. They're going to sweep the Colts, improving to 3-3 in Indy. So I'm going to take Trevor Lawrence, ETN, James Robinson. That backfield has been on a bit of a slump lately, but I believe they'll bounce back, without a doubt in my mind. Christian Kirk obviously had a bad week as well last week. Hurt a lot of fantasy owners, which we can get into that later. But Christian Kirk, he should bounce back this week. The team as a whole, rather, I believe will come out and win this game convincingly. They won 24-0 against the Colts. I don't expect it to be a shutout, but I do expect them to win by probably a score or two and improve to 3-3. Next up, we're going to have New England heading into Cleveland. New England at 2-3, fourth place in their division. Cleveland 2-3, second place in their division. So funny how that that stuff works. But Bailey Zapp last week, we'll start with New England. He looked good. For what it was, Bailey Zapp and Jacoby Myers have a connection that no one could have expected. I believe Jacoby, which we will talk about Jacoby for fantasy pickups later in the episode, but Jacoby Myers had like 8 catches for 110 yards and a touchdown or something like that. So they had a great passing attack for what it was against Detroit. And Bailey Zapp, I believe he is getting the start here in Cleveland. You would think that they would come out this game. It was just reported this morning that Damian Harris is expected to miss a couple of weeks due to his hamstring injury. So Damian Harris won't be there. It's going to be a big Ramondre Stevenson game. They're heading into Cleveland. You would think they run the ball a lot, but Detroit has a terrible run defense as well. So I don't know what to expect from Bill Belichick and the Patriots here. I'm expecting them to be able to run all over Cleveland. We haven't been able to stop. We weren't able to stop Caleb Huntley before that game. No one really knew who he was. Now a good amount of people know of Caleb Huntley, and that's because of the Browns. But I'm going to say this. From now until the end of the season, whenever that may be for the Cleveland Browns, I will take the Cleveland Browns. Sure, will that mess up my prediction rate, in my rankings? Probably. That'll probably give me an extra 8 losses that logically I wouldn't have. But I'm going to take the Browns each and every week, so maybe we won't even cover those games. But Jacoby Brissett has looked great. Obviously, he's the QB sneak master in the league. It's really funny to see every single time we're fourth and 2, 4th and 3, or even 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. You know what's going to happen, but it still catches me off guard every time seeing Jacoby Brissett just, always get the first down. But, Nick Chubb, best running back in the league this season, no question. He's looked fantastic. Amari Cooper's picked it up. He's one of, if not the best route runner in the league. I'd probably give the edge to Devontae Adams, but that's elite class to be in. Regardless, the offense has looked good at times. And we start off strong. We can't finish a game to save our life. And that is the difference that I believe a 2-3 record is to I believe we sit at 5-0 right now if we have Deshaun Watson at the helm. Obviously, that's a dramatic change between Watson and Brissett, but it really shows the difference of a great quarterback and the possible impact they can have on a game. But give me the Browns here. They're going to bounce back against Bailey Zapp and the Patriots as we move towards a division matchup, or a division foe for the Browns. We're going to have Cincy heading into New Orleans. Kamara had his first big game of the year. Thanks to my dad, I just grabbed him for Kyle Pitts in a trade. So Kamara's on the up. Chris Olave scored a touchdown last week when he was concussed. So I'm not sure how he was in the game, but he was knocked out on that catch for sure. Regardless, he's looked great. He's probably the best rookie receiver we've seen this year. I mean, without a doubt. So Chris Olave's looked great. James should be back. If Jameis isn't back, Andy Dalton again will be at the helm. Shout out to Taysom Hill. Unfortunately, I don't know why I don't like him. I really don't know why. But shout out to Taysom Hill. 4 touchdowns last week. Won a lot of people their fantasy weeks. And they're going to find a way. Every single week, he's either going to do nothing or he will find a way to get involved. Whether it's throwing the ball, catching the ball, running the ball. Like Tebow. He will get involved in this New Orleans offense this week. They're at home against the Bengals, but I'm going to take the Bengals. The Saints defense and Marshawn Lattimore specifically, they've looked great this year. But give me the offensive firepower of the Bengals. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon. He should have been one of the first names. And obviously Joe Burrow. The pass rush of the Saints with Cam Jordan obviously does worry me for the Bengals side of things. But I believe the offensive firepower at the end of the day is going to be too much for this Saints team to handle. So unless Taysom Hill comes out with another 4-touchdown game, give me the Bengals. As we move forward, the Buccaneers are going to face the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tampa at 3-2, first in their division. Pittsburgh 1-4, last in the AFC North. Give me Tampa. Self-explanatory. Bucs defense has looked great under Todd Bowles at the helm. Tom Brady still getting it done. Maybe he's on a bit of a revenge tour. Obviously, we heard the unfortunate news about him and his wife lately, so I believe Brady's going to want to go out and start winning some ball games, put it that way. Give me Tampa on the road in Pittsburgh. Next up, we're going to have San Fran in Atlanta, and I'm just now realizing I have only taken one home team so far. When's the last time that only one home team has won in a week? Not sure, but I'm going to take San Fran again. San Fran, Jeff Olson looked great last week. George Kittle, maybe if he wasn't so good at blocking, maybe he would be featured more in the passing game. But they just don't pass to him. They would rather just run the ball and use the elite tight end they have as a blocker, which, hey, this is why I'm sitting in a podcast studio right now and I'm not making millions like Kyle Shanahan. There's more to the game than we all fans can understand. But hey, they're 3-2. They're first in the NFC West, which is always impressive. They're heading into Atlanta. Atlanta's coming off of a loss last week, and I believe they're going to slide again. Atlanta shouldn't have beat the Browns, and I believe they're going to fall to 2-4. I mean, a positive, I will say, they did play Tampa last week without Kyle Pitts. So if they actually use Kyle Pitts the way he's supposed to be used, I can see them putting up a fight here at home versus the Niners, who love to run the ball. But hey, Cordero's out. They're going to have to rely on Tyler Algier and Caleb Huntley. In the backfield, obviously, you have Marcus Mariota's two-way ability. But give me San Fran. Everything has to go right for Atlanta to win this game, and I can't see that happening. So give me San Fran on the road. Next up, we're going to have the 3-2, second placed in their division, Jets, going into Lambeau Field to take on the Packers at 3-2, second place in the NFC North. Give me the Packers. I'm not a firm believer in Zach Wilson and this Jets team quite yet. The Jets team took out Skylar Thompson last week, which I will want to talk about that next because we're going to get into Miami and Minnesota's matchup. But the Jets barely beat a Skylar Thompson-led Miami Dolphins team. Regardless of the fact, a win is a win, any given Sunday in the NFL, obviously. But the Packers are going to come into this game a little peed off. They lost to a Daniel Jones-led team in London. The definition of the Packers, they don't give Rodgers help. They have not given that man help this season, but they're 3-2. They have A.J. Dillon. They have Aaron Jones. They're going to be able to run the ball against the Jets defense, and I have the Packers coming out on top this week to go to 4-2. Last 1 o'clock matchup, we're going to have Minnesota heading into Miami to take on the Dolphins, and what's believed to be Teddy Bridgewater. Minnesota on the road, they're 4-1, first in the NFC North. They've looked great this season. A lot of people had them as Super Bowl underdogs. I don't see that with Kirk Cousins, but they could do it. They could. They've looked great on both sides of the ball. Kirk Cousins has been shaky, but regardless of Kirk Cousins' play, they have arguably the best receiver in football in Justin Jefferson. They have a top 5, top 10 running back in Dalvin Cook. So the offensive lines looked great. And right now they're 4-1. They're heading into Miami. They're going to be playing Teddy Bridgewater, which last week, if you're not aware, Teddy Bridgewater got hit early in the game and he had to exit to get tested for concussion protocol. But due to what happened to Tua and that big dilemma, especially in Miami, Teddy was cleared of concussion protocol, but he was not allowed to enter re-enter the game, I should put it that way. And that was very puzzling to see, but it happens. It happened. Skylar Thompson had to step in, which I believe he was an undrafted rookie. And they obviously took the loss last week against the Jets. They've lost the last two. I don't have them bouncing back here with Teddy Bridgewater at the helm. Give me Minnesota on the road at Miami. And that's going to do it for the 1 o'clock games. As we move to the 4 o'clock games, Carolina and the newly led by Steve Wilks, former Arizona head coach, I believe when they had Josh Rosen. What a time that was. They're heading into LA to take on the Rams, who are 2-3 and sit second in the NFC West. Give me the Rams. Self-explanatory. Too much talent. They're going to overwhelm the Panthers, the Panthers right now are very interesting to talk about. With the new coach, Matt Rule is finally out of there. He'll get a college job here in a couple weeks here. But right now, all the teams in the league, especially Buffalo, they've been calling Carolina, asking about DJ Moore, asking about Christian McCaffrey himself. Could you imagine a Josh Allen, a Christian McCaffrey, Stephon Diggs-led offense? Oh, well, I'm not going to disrespect Gabe Davis. Those four would do some damage. I will put it that way if McCaffrey can stay healthy, obviously. But if you're Carolina, right now you have to explore all phone calls. I don't care if it is for Brian Burns, DJ Moore. If a team wants to call about Sam Darnold, let them. No one on this team should be untouchable, and I believe they should explore looking into trading McCaffrey. If you're going to get a first and second round pick or maybe more than that, if you're a team like Carolina, you need to be looking at a Bryce Young. You need to be looking at a CJ Stroud or heck. Right now, there's a lot of hype around Will Levis, Kentucky's quarterback. I don't see it. But you need to get a quarterback. You need a franchise changer, a culture change in Carolina, and that's not going to start this week. Give me the Rams. The Rams are going to go to 500, taking the win pretty easily here against Carolina. And next up, we're going to have Arizona at Seattle. Arizona, 2-3. They were close to taking down, I'll put it that way, the 4-0 at the time, undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. Things fell apart late. They lost. They're sitting at 2-3, third in the NFC West. They're going divisional matchup here against Seattle. Very simply, before we even get into Seattle, give me Arizona here today in this matchup. Too much talent. On the downside of Arizona, though, I will say, James Conner and Darrell Williams will be out this week. At least as of right now, they're both expected to be out with their injuries, respectively. And, I don't want to wish injuries on anybody. Get well, guys, soon. But Arizona's going to have to rely on Eno Benjamin this week, which we'll talk about later. And I guess on the positive side, hey, you're playing a Geno Smith-led team. And this is the last week for a DeAndre Hopkins suspension. So you just got to hold on. If they can come out of this 6 weeks at 500, I can imagine they're feeling pretty good as Cardinals fans not having a top 5 receiver in the game plan. But anyways, we're going to, I guess we'll have to talk about Seattle. Geno Smith, they wrote me off, but I didn't write back. DK Metcalf and Geno Smith, weirdly enough, and Tyler Lockett have looked great. Watching Metcalf and Lockett this year makes me realize even more that Russell really downgraded. We're talking about Russell Wilson here. His receiving core has downgraded a lot. A lot going from Seattle to Denver, with Metcalf and Lockett arguably being better than, the best two out of those four, if we're talking about Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. But Geno Smith, he's looked great this year. Maybe it's because he was a backup for so long, and maybe because in New York he struggled. I cannot take him seriously. And, unfortunately for Seattle, though, I will say they just lost Rashad Penny. He fractured his fibula and it's going to require surgery. He's going to have to be out for the season. So prayers up to Rashad Penny. You know, he was starting to pick it up. You know, he's starting to have a great season. And like I said, you never want to see injuries happen. It's the worst part about sports. So prayers up to Penny. You know, hopefully you have a great recovery process, and we'll see you next year. You know, so, but with all that being said, give me Arizona on the road against the 12th man in Seattle. Last 4 o'clock game, it's going to be the game of the week. We're going to have an AFC Championship rematch here. Or no, I apologize. An AFC Divisional match rematch here from last season. We're going to have the 4-1 Buffalo Bills and the 4-1 Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, they're both first in their divisions. And I'm going to make a bold prediction here. Bold prediction for me. It's going to be the first one of my podcast. So, hey, you know, we'll see if I can get some credibility. Give me Buffalo in this game. But I'm going to predict these teams meet up in the AFC title game, which that's not a bold prediction. But give me Buffalo in this matchup. KC's going to avenge their loss in Week 6 at the AFC title game. I have KC as the title favorite. There's a lot I could say about KC. They have the best quarterback in the league, best tight end in the league. Arguably, I don't believe so, but arguably the best coach in the league. You know, a promising defense. I mean, do you need more with the best quarterback in the league? The answer to that question is no, by the way. But Buffalo, they've looked great. Obviously, I mentioned they're in talks with bringing in more talent to an already crazy offense. Josh Allen is the MVP frontrunner right now. He's looked great. They've been blowing teams out left and right. I saw a stat this morning that said they've only allowed 7 points all season in the second half. 7. So I expect that to change here against KC. Hopefully we get another banger, another thriller of a game between these two. But give me Buffalo on the road in Arrowhead. I'm taking a lot of road matchups this week. As of now, I only have 3 teams at home that are winning their matchup. 4, including the Thursday night game. But Sunday Night Football, Dallas at 4-1, second in their division. They're heading into Philly to play the 5-0 Eagles. Give me Philly. Cooper Rush. You know, we're not sure when Dak's coming back quite yet. We know it's still going to be a couple weeks. But I will say, Dallas's defense and Micah Parsons especially, he's got to be the defensive player of the year front runner as of right now. But Dallas their defense has been amazing. CeeDee Lamb has stepped up. You know, the whole team has stepped up and kind of in a way looked better without a Dak Prescott, excuse me. But give me Dallas, or I apologize. Give me Dallas in a close loss. I cannot talk right now. We're probably going to cut this out. Philadelphia, they're 5-0. They're going to improve to 6-0. And then 7-8 probably, because their schedule is very lenient. The they fed into the Philadelphia dark horse Super Bowl contending hype prior to the season. But give me Philadelphia to improve to 6-0 against the Cooper Rush-led Dallas team. And on to Monday night, where we're going to have another snooze fest, most likely, in the 2-3 Denver Broncos, heading into the Chargers Stadium, where they'll take on the 3-2 Los Angeles Chargers. Give me the Chargers here. Keenan Allen is expected to make his return. Obviously, Denver's still trying to recover, I'll put it that way, from the Javonte Williams injury. But give me the Chargers. Too much talent. You know, Joey Bosa is expected to be back. Khalil Mack looked okay last week. Derwin James had a bad week last week against the Browns, but they turned that game around super quick. Joshua Kelly looked great. They were actually able to run the ball for the first time in a long time. You know, go figure, it happens against the Cleveland Browns. But the Chargers here, they're going to be fighting for that division. They're going to improve to 4-2 here against the struggling Danger Witch Russell Wilson-led Broncos. Which, side note, before we transition, if you haven't seen that commercial, it's very, very awkward, first off, but very funny. If you guys aren't aware, Subway has sponsored Russell Wilson, and there was a video, well, an advertisement was released over on TikTok and YouTube of Russ in that commercial. Basically, he has his own sandwich, just like Travis Scott had his own McDonald's meal, and many other celebrities to this point have had their own specified meals under their name. But I believe the Russell Wilson in that advertisement, there was a part in it where he was staring into the camera for a good 10 to 15 seconds. He was staring into your soul as the audience, and he took a bite of his sandwich, and in the most awkward way possible, he said, "Watch out, it's spicy." I'm telling you, if you guys haven't went and watched that clip, go ahead and take some time out to go do that. It's a good laugh. I think the spiciest thing on the sandwich was pepperonis or banana peppers, but regardless, it was a very awkward commercial. It was taken down because it was receiving hate, and but hey, maybe if Russ passes those sandwich out to his team, maybe they could get a boost. Maybe they could pull up an upset against the Chargers. I don't think so. Give me LA and the Chargers. That's our picks for the week. We're going to move into the last segment of the show here. It's going to be the fantasy pickups of the week. Very quickly, a rundown of it. I'm just going to give you a couple people from each position on offense for fantasy, obviously. Quarterback, running back, receiver, and tight end. And it's just there. It's there if you need it. I'm in 6 leagues to count 5 that I can make transactions. First, you're doing a guillotine league, so that's obviously different. But let's get into it. For quarterbacks this week, I just want to quickly mention, because we've already talked about them throughout the show, Geno Smith at Arizona, he's looked great. He could continue to look great against that Arizona team. He's a pickup-worthy option. Same with Carson Wentz. Wentz at Chicago. If you make this move, you're banking on Washington to... You're banking on Wentz to have a fire under him after those comments were made about him from his head coach. You're banking on Wentz going out throwing for 3, maybe 400 yards like he's done this season twice now. So Wentz and Geno Smith, those are going to be the quarterback pickups of the week. Very quickly, I just want to throw those out there. As we transition to running back, quick note, if Raheem Mostert is still on your waiver wires, I noticed he was in mine for a couple leagues, go ahead and pick him up. Raheem Mostert last week, I believe he had 17. He was averaging about 10 yards a carry, had a touchdown, had some catches. So Mostert, if he's there, go ahead and pick him up. If anything, I'm not saying start him, but just to have him on your roster is always a good play in case of injuries. But the main fantasy pickup this week, and I'm talking about waste your number one. If you had the number one waiver wire order, go ahead and place it on K9. That is, of course, Ken Walker III, running back for Seattle. He's only rostered in 45% of leagues. And as mentioned earlier, Rashad Penny is believed to have a fractured fibula. It's going to require surgery. He is done for the year. So this is Ken Walker's backfield. For the most part. And we'll get into that in a second. But, last week he stepped in, had 8 carries, 88 yards, and a touchdown. He's going to get all of the first and second down work. So basically all the running down work. It's going to be a great flex play, if you're in desperate need. But as shown last week, he's going to get all of the first and second down work, all of the goal line touches. The only downside to a Ken Walker pickup is he's not going to get much pass work. That is going to be, of course, DJ Dallas, who is their third down back there. And it was shown last week, DJ Dallas got a bunch of pass catching work, but K9 is going to be the lead back there in Seattle. They want to run the ball. It's a Pete Carroll-led offense, and if by chance you draft him on draft day like me, but instead of me, of what I did, you kept him, you're looking pretty good right now. I mean, if anything, hope for a good week and go out there and trade them. The trade deadline is coming up in fantasy, so you can always, this is like kind of the last time of the year where you can capitalize on a high. And right now, I'm kind of in all of my leagues hoping my bench players or my fringe starters are able to have a pretty good week. Another running back option is going to be Eno Benjamin. He's only rostered in 11% of leagues. He is the running back for Arizona. And as mentioned, James Conner and Darrell Williams, they're both expected to miss time, with their own injuries. And he is a pass-catching back. So that is the plus I will say to Eno Benjamin. Last week, as we saw, he didn't do much, right? But that was also James Conner was hurt in the second half. They were already down. So at that point, they were just trying to get something to work. He's going to have a full week to prep with the starters. Eno Benjamin, he's going to be a great pass-catching back as he's shown in his past. And, I mean, if you have any doubt, at the end of the day, Arizona has no other running back to go to. Their first and second strings are out. So it is Eno Benjamin's backfield for the foreseeable future until James Conner is healthy. And he's going to be a great play against Seattle this week. If Seattle can go out and put up another 30-plus points like they have a couple times this year, Arizona's going to have to pass the ball. And Eno Benjamin's going to get a lot of those catches. So K9 and Ken Walker, Eno Benjamin, those are my running back pickups of the week. As we move towards receivers, we're going to have Jacoby Myers. He's rostered in 48% of leagues, and despite a third string, Bailey Zapp, I'll put it that way, a third string Bailey Zapp, he put up 7 catches on 8 targets, 111 yards, and a touchdown. He is also playing a Browns secondary, which I believe he will get the Denzel Ward matchup this week, so that is worrisome. But regardless, he looked okay with Mac Jones. And, I mean, so far, I believe he had 111 of the 185 passing yards for Bailey Zapp, so he's looked great with Bailey Zapp. He's a great pickup, and you might argue, like I've mentioned it earlier, the Lions are known this season. They cannot stop the run. Obviously, Damian Harris got hurt early in New England's game last week, but the Lions can't stop the run. That's known. Jacoby Myers still came out. He still put up a great game. And, I mean, if you're still worried about the Browns not stopping the run, the Lions couldn't either. Both of those teams cannot stop the run. And if New England didn't resort to the run last week, I don't really expect them to this week. Though it's logical, and though I think that as a Browns fan we will lose if Ramondre can get going. But Jacoby Myers, a lot of players like this seem to have pretty good games against the Browns. So Jacoby Myers, he's a great flex play if you absolutely need it. If anything, he's a great pickup. Grab and stash, put it that way. Next up, we're going to have Rondell Moore, rostered in 18% of leagues. Last week, he had 7 catches, 70 yards. He's the clear, and I mean clear, number 2 option. They're playing in Seattle this week. That is, I guess, a downside to Rondell Moore, but he is the clear number 2 option. Like I said, if Seattle is going to put up, 30-plus points this week, this game could be a sneaky shootout. And that's why I've included a lot of Seattle and Arizona players so far. But Rondell Moore, number 2 option. This is a 1-week rental most likely. It is the last week of D-Hop suspension. But even if, D-Hop's probably going to take a week or two to get back into game shape. There's nothing like playing in-game. And it's going to take him a week or two probably to get going again. So he might even be, hold him for 3-4 weeks. And then, hey, if nothing happens, you can always drop him. It's always an option. Next up, we're going to have Alec Pierce, which is a sleeper in my opinion. He's rostered in 8% of leagues. He is Matt Ryan's favorite target, without a doubt. As a Michael Pittman owner, I'm saying this very selfishly. Alec Pierce is without a doubt Matt Ryan's favorite target. Last week it looked like he was a poor man's Cooper Kupp, the way he was getting targeted late in the game. But he's continued to get better. He's continued to get more volume. So he's not a start yet, I wouldn't say, but he's definitely warranted a roster spot in all of your leagues, or at least the majority of them. So go ahead and pick him up. Last receiver we're going to cover is Isaiah McKenzie. He's rostered in 48% of leagues. He didn't play last week. But let's not forget, he's a part of the best passing offense, but the best offense, in short, in the league. Josh Allen, he's averaging 330 passing yards a week, 3 touchdowns, more on the ground for Josh Allen's side of things. But don't fall for the Khalil Shakir trap. Everyone is going to run to that. Everyone's going to run to Shakir this week. In my opinion, Mckenzie is the slot receiver. If Shakir was that much better, he would have been getting more volume. He would be getting more targets, more routes run, more playing time, put it that way. But Mckenzie, when both are healthy, he is the clear slot, and there's no question about it. So Mckenzie, if you're in absolute need, he's a good pickup because he is very boom or bust. He's had 2 really good games this year. So just keep an eye out for Isaiah McKenzie. Last we're going to have is the tight end position. I'm going to apologize in advance because I don't know why I don't like this guy. I don't know why. But Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill in his emergency start tight end. He's rostered in 30% of leagues. I'm expecting that to go up. Basically, I could put it this way. Don't expect another 4-touchdown week ever this year. But the positives to Taysom Hill are very intriguing for the simple fact that he can impact the game in so many ways. He is the definition of a gadget player. He can pass a touchdown. He can catch touchdowns. He can run touchdowns in like he has this season. So Taysom Hill, if you need an option, go ahead and scoop him up. That's going to do it for pickups of the week. Let's get into the close, man. All right, as we come to a close, I had a couple things I wanted to talk about. First things first, if you made it this far, I want to thank you. I've stumbled on a lot of my words unexpectedly here in this first episode. It's been shaky, without a doubt. But it's only up from here. I also want to send a special thanks out to Chris Stewart. He is the operations coordinator here in the studio. I want to special thanks out to him for allowing me to have the studio time here and allowing me to grow my brand and obviously connect with you guys. So I'm sure you'll hear a lot about him in the future. Next, I wanted to cover the visual and audio element of the podcast. As of now, obviously, we're strictly audio. It may be that way forever. Hopefully not, obviously. But eventually we will add a visual element to the podcast. So stick with me. I'm not the most technological person, but we will figure that out in the near future. And that's going to lead me to my next point. If you have a second, go ahead and follow me on all of my socials. All news and notes about the podcast, when stuff is going to be releasing, all that good stuff is going to be posted in the comments below. As you're listening to this over on the YouTube, go ahead and hit a subscribe, like button, and check the comments down below for my Instagram social. That's where everything's going to be posted for upcoming podcast dates and so on and so forth. I will see you guys on Thursday. I will see you guys on Tuesday next week. On the 18th, we'll cover the NBA season kicking off with some predictions and much more. Anything from individual awards to just a season outlook in general. But until then, that was episode 1 of the Anomaly Podcast. I'm your host, Owen Stiftar. Take care. Ugh.